I knew it. I shouldn't have been invited to talk on forgiveness. You should have included me out, because I'm not interested in your good manners. I'm not here to starch your collar or polish your smile until the neighbors think you've joined the holy club. I'm not even interested in your well-behaved apologies, those pretty bouquets we toss like confetti after a quarrel. I'm interested in your freedom. And freedom, my friends, doesn't arrive by squeezing your jaw, clenching your fists, and saying, I forgive you, as if your teeth were the gates of heaven. If it takes willpower, it isn't forgiveness. It's humanhood dressing itself in religious clothing and hoping God won't notice the price tag still dangling from the sleeve. Let's be honest, because honesty is cheaper than therapy and quicker than gossip. You forgive in the morning, oh, you do it beautifully, with soft light through the kitchen window and a verse on the calendar. You're almost luminous as you wash the cup. Bless them, you say, nodding like a choir angel on a spring hinge. And by 3 p.m, you are the district attorney of your private courthouse, reopening the case with fresh exhibits. You've located one more text, one more tone of voice, one more look they gave you in 2014 that proves you were right all along. You call it processing. Heaven calls it prosecuting. And then you wonder why there is no peace at the end of your liturgy of effort. Permit me one of those cold-blooded lines that saves time. The personal self cannot produce spiritual forgiveness any more than a thorn bush can knit a silk scarf. Judge not, that ye be not judged, says the Master. And do you see, he does not add, unless you've had your coffee and memorized 3 devotions. Judgment and forgiveness do not share a kitchen. When judgment is cooking, forgiveness has already left the house. So here is our little scandal for the evening. In the next minutes, I have no interest in improving your will. I won't send it to the gym. I won't give it vitamins. I won't sign it up for a 12-week virtue challenge. We are going to change the address you are living from. Forgiveness lives at another street entirely, the God street of consciousness, where there is no courtroom to begin with. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That was not a feat of emotional athletics. That was the air he breathed. He didn't summon it up. It came from where he was living. But you say, I tried. And I say, of course you did. The personal sense of self, that old actor with 1,000 costumes, tried to play God for a scene or two and forgot its line. Don't be ashamed of that. Be finished with it. The issue is not that you are weak. The issue is that you are attempting holiness from the wrong identity. The personal self thrives on contrast. Me better than you. Me injured by you. Me forgiving you so I can be the hero in the newsletter. That self needs enemies the way a furnace needs coal. It cannot forgive without secretly keeping a ledger. And ledgers are not the gospel. They are the minutes of humanhood's last board meeting. Let me confess my crime so you'll relax. I, too, have played saint at breakfast and prosecuting attorney by lunch. I, too, have written glowing letters to heaven and footnotes to hell. Outwardly cold-blooded about etiquette, yes, but inwardly overheated with love for God and man, that is where we are going. Not nicer manners, not sentimental syrup, but a transfer out of human judgment into the God self where no case can be filed. So, make no vows to be better tonight. Don't promise me kindness. I don't trust promises with applause attached. Instead, let us agree to one thing. We will examine the judge within and learn to lay down the gavel. We will stop asking effort to do what only consciousness can do. And if you will stay with me, no halo required, no heroic grimace by the time we are through, you will recognize why your best forgiveness felt like a lie, and you will be ready to live from the place where it doesn't. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone. We are not improving the aim of the stone thrower. We are dropping the stone. Now let me pull a trapdoor under the feet of our private theology and see what falls through. Do you think God is leaning on the balcony of heaven with folded arms, watching to see if you rack up enough forgiveness points before he turns the peace faucet back on? Do you think it's the God self of us that is withholding peace, the way a stern banker withholds a loan? Come back when you've forgiven 70 more times and filled out forms 6A and 6B? Do you suppose the Christ said, "My peace I give unto you upon receipt of your quarterly forgiveness report"? Or have we, in a fine bit of humanhood bookkeeping, made a bargain? If I forgive, then I get paid in peace. If I don't, God will hold my joy until I do better. That, my friends, is Mosaic accounting 2 times 2 spirituality. I can hear the inner accountant clicking beads. I tithed. I complimented my enemy's hat. I didn't post the snarky comment. So where are my dividends? And when the check doesn't arrive on schedule, we accuse God of poor customer service. Do you see the absurdity? Peace as wages. Spirit as payroll. The Father as paymaster. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you, says the Master. So why would we insist on turning grace into a salary? Peace is not a tip for good behavior. It is the climate of God consciousness. It isn't manufactured by willpower. It appears the instant judgment stops masquerading as spiritual effort. Now, before your lawyer brain objects, let me be clear. We are not excusing wrongdoing. Caesar has his courts. Locks belong on doors. Facts have their place on the police blotter. But your consciousness is not a courthouse unless you make it one. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Do you hear the physics in that, not the bribery? When prosecution is the activity of the mind, peace cannot be heard above the hammering of the gavel. When the gavel is laid down, peace is not awarded. It is discovered like oxygen rushing in when you stop holding your breath. Let me ask again. And forgive the persistence. It saves years. Do you believe the infinite, who maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, withdraws his sun from you until you grimace your way through the proper number of forgiving thoughts? Or is it nearer the truth to say, the sun is shining, but I have drawn the blinds, called my case against you, and then, chilled in my own shade, I announce that God has turned off the heat? Do you think peace is a product you order because you behaved? Or is peace what remains when the inner quarrel ceases to shout that it is holy? This is the delicate edge. Acknowledge the human event. Don't enthrone it. Speak the necessary no. File the necessary report. Lock the necessary door. And then, in the sanctuary, withdraw the power you lent to the scene by rehearsing it, narrating it, feeding it with righteous speeches. The personal self thrives on prosecution. It keeps the furnace of separation hot. The God self needs no enemy to be what it is. My peace I leave with you, not as prize, not as trophy, not as rebate, as presents. If you like a metaphor, humor me, peace is not a paycheck. It is your native air. You did not earn the next breath. You merely stopped strangling it. Forgiveness, as prayer, is the release of the hands from another's throat in thought, and suddenly air, unbought, unsold, fills the lungs. No confetti, no applause, just the quiet fact that the kingdom was within you while you were bargaining at the gate. So, if peace is not delayed in heaven, what creates the delay on earth? Not God, not your unworthiness, not their behavior, astonishing as it may be. It is the activity of judgment performing under the stage name of spiritual effort. When that actor leaves the stage, the house lights change by themselves. And now we are close to the heart of the matter, for once you can recognize judgment in its religious costume, you will know exactly what to lay down, and you will know where prayer begins. Now, if you'll allow one more unflattering mirror, let us look at humanhood's favorite pastime, condemnation with a perfume spritz labeled, "I'm just being honest." Humanhood, the sense of selfhood apart from God, lives by comparison, feeds on memory, and speaks accusation as its native tongue. It is the I that grades itself on a curve and always finds you wanting. It keeps a ledger thicker than a family Bible, and if the Bible is for the coffee table, the ledger is by the bed. Humanhood survives by maintaining a contrast. Me as injured, you as culprit. Me as righteous, you as remedial. Me as awake, you as still on your journey. That is its oxygen. Remove the contrast and the personal self starts to wobble like a carnival booth when the wind changes. Watch how clever it gets. Discernment, a clean capacity to see, is dressed in a velvet robe and quietly promoted to superiority. I'm discerning starts to mean I sit higher on the bleachers. Accountability, meant to steward behavior and consequences, sneaks downstairs at midnight and puts on vengeance's boots. Boundaries, those wise fences that keep the garden from being trampled, acquire barbed wire dipped in bitterness. Soon the fence is not about wisdom but about punishment. Even truth-telling, wonderful, freeing truth is handed a megaphone and told to broadcast another's character defects as community service. Do you see the trick? The virtues are not the sin. The hitchhiker is the judge inside them. Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own? The Master did not say stop seeing. He said drop the beam that turns seeing into sentencing. And then lights, camera, condemnation. We set up an inner cinema. We replay the scene. Oh, not just replay it. We produce the director's cut. We freeze frame their eyebrow. We add subtitles to their tone. We overdub motives they never confessed. And we invite guest commentators, our most empathetic friends, to watch the matinee. We call it processing. Heaven calls it calling witnesses. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. Not as a threat from above, but as a law of consciousness. The measure I use becomes the box I live in. Every new edit tightens the lid. Now, the cost, because there is always a bill for a private courtroom. Condemnation is a remarkable jailer. It chains you to the person you cannot stand and then hands them the key. Wherever you go, you drag 2 beds into one cell, you and your offender, and you sleep with the case on the pillow. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whiles thou art in the way with him, not as an instruction to lose the civil suit, but as liberation from carrying a courthouse in your ribs. The moment I insist on holding you guilty in my heart, I volunteer to become your roommate. The news may report their crime once. My thought reports it hourly. Who, then, is keeping the sentence alive? Let me ask in that relentless way that saves years. Is it the God self of us that needs someone else to be wrong in order to be... Do you imagine the Christ and you checks the scoreboard every morning to confirm its identity? 3 people below me, I still exist? Or is it transparently true that only the personal self can relish the sour candy of condemnation because only the personal self is fed by the thrill of being separate and superior? Condemnation is humanhood's continuity plan. Keep someone else guilty and the personal self gets to live another day with applause from its private balcony. But what is the applause worth if you must forfeit peace to buy it? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Hear that as physics again, not as barter. Mercy dissolves the courtroom climate. Mercy is not soft on facts, it is free of fetters. If humanhood cannot forgive because its very scaffolding is built of comparisons and cases, then what shall we do short of grinding our teeth into piety? We die daily to the judge. We stop rehearsing the trial. We admit that the identity who needs enemies cannot be our truth. And then we will glimpse another way of being present, another self altogether, the God self that does not require an opposite to know its own light. When that self looks, it sees. When it speaks, it blesses. And when it remembers God. Let's draw the map as simply as a child with two crayons. One color is the personal sense, me versus you, mine versus yours, past versus present, a separate life trying to keep its shape against the wind. The other color is the God self, the one, life appearing as all. The I and my Father are one, not as a motto, but as oxygen, two selves, two worlds, two climates with no overlapping weather. In one, I live by stories, debts, and comparison. In the other, I live by presence. In one, forgiveness is a tool in my hand, something I attempt on schedule. In the other, forgiveness is the heir, nobody's achievement, everybody's inheritance. Why does the personal self fail at forgiveness? Because it forgives with its fingers crossed. It keeps the case file under the pillow and calls it wisdom. It writes, paid in full with disappearing ink, then holds the ultraviolet lamp over your next sentence to bring the charges back. It says, I release you. But what it means is, I will stop shouting as long as you behave and the universe mails me an apology. That is not forgiveness. That is a subtle lien on the soul. Judge not, said the Master, and there is no comma after it with an asterisk for exceptions. The personal self cannot obey because judgment is its backbone. Remove prosecution and the whole edifice rattles. So what then? Do we spend 30 more years polishing our manners until condemnation looks like courtesy? No. We die daily to the judge. I die daily, wrote Paul, not of boredom, not of circumstances, but of the belief in a private self entitled to run the docket. Each morning, in that inner altar where no one applauds, we resign the post of district attorney. We lay the gavel on the mercy seat. We refuse to keep our life by keeping anyone else guilty. And here is the paradox that will make you look unromantic to sentimental friends. Outwardly, you may seem cold-blooded because you stop rehearsing outrage. You stop meeting for tea with the offense. You stop giving weather reports on another's behavior. Inwardly, you will be overheated with love for God and man, because to have no enemy is to be warmed from the inside by the one fire. It is not indifference. It is freedom from inflamed personalism. Do you think it is your task to hop from one world to the other by spiritual athletics, 30 push-ups of compassion, and a marathon of nice thoughts? No, that is the same personal self with a yoga mat. The bridge is prayer, real prayer, which is the cessation of self-authorship. Be still and know that I am God, not be busy and hope. Be still and let the universe cease being a courtroom you supervise. In that stillness, identification shifts. It is not a mood you manufacture. It is a recognition that descends when you stop testifying. You don't climb into the God self. You stop climbing out of it. But I must do something. The mind protests. Yes, stop doing the inner trial. That is a magnificent something. Sit, stand, walk, wash the dishes, and withdraw your consent from the prosecution in thought. Whisper, if you like, not to the ceiling, but to the self, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, which is to say, I commend my identity to the truth that needs no opposite. Then wait, not for fireworks, not for tingly forgiveness feelings. Wait for the pressure to fall when the judge leaves the bench. My peace I give unto you. It is not awarded for overtime served in the courtroom. It appears because there is no courtroom left. Two selves, two worlds. If you remain the personal self, you will forgive 100 times and resent it 101. If you abide as the God self, you will discover there was no enemy to manage, only appearances to witness lightly. We are not trying to make a better judge. We are discontinuing the court. We are not perfecting humanhood. We are dropping it like a costume after the play. And in that uncluttered space, something inevitable, tender, and mightily impersonal happens. Forgiveness without a forgiver, love without a target, peace without a contract. Let's twist that Bible upside down and see what falls out. Not heavy commandments for the weary, but a change of weather for consciousness. Have you a little red-letter gospel in your pocket or purse? Keep it handy. We are not here to quote as if piling verses might frighten guilt into good behavior. We are here to let the Master's words reinterpret our very seeing. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye. But I say unto you, resist not evil. Hear that, not as a moral dare, but as a revelation of a different climate. In the Mosaic weather, storms, trade blows. In the Christ climate, the sun does not wrestle with shadows. It shines, and the argument ends for lack of opponent. Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him till 7 times? You know the reply. I say not unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Do you think he was issuing a grueling fitness plan for the 490 push-ups of niceness? Do you think the infinite counts with a little chalk in the heavens? 488, nearly there, keep grinding? Or is it transparent when we stop bargaining with Scripture and let the red letters read us? He is not commanding a heroic act. He is describing the normal atmosphere of awakened awareness. In the God self, forgiveness is not performed, it is present, like breathing. You do not count your mercies. You breathe because oxygen is here. The Christ consciousness forgives because there is nothing else to do in its weather. It is not a task, it is climate. Please do not confuse that climate with human sentiment. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That was no soggy benevolence, no misty-eyed bargain to keep the family together. That is spiritual sovereignty, uninterruptible awareness, unmoved by appearances, free of inner transaction, no emotional interchange, no IOUs floated to the offender, no handshake deals in the soul. It is not passivity, it is power. Resist not evil does not mean roll over for Caesar. It means do not loan evil your consciousness by wrestling it all night and calling that prayer. In the realm of appearances, you may speak affirm, no, lock a door, sign a paper. In the sanctuary of awareness, you hold no man in condemnation, not even while you take wise steps. That is Christ's non-resistance, not soft on facts, sovereign in spirit. Now, if 70 times 7 is a description, the question becomes, how do I live where that description is true of me? Not by squeezing the jaw, not by training the personal self to act holy. We yield into it by prayer, real prayer, the cessation of prosecution, the quieting of the inner witness stand, the end of testifying against another. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Let not make. Allow not force. Do you hear the gentleness and the authority braided together? Our task is not to build a better judge. Our task is to vacate the bench. Carry the red letters. Saturate yourself until the phrases stop being slogans and start becoming oxygen. Rephrase them in your own tongue until 70 times 7 is heard as always. And resist not evil is lived as don't donate your consciousness to a fight. Read, yes, but more be read. Let the voice that said, peace be still, say it in your chest to the waves you have been calling duty. And when the old Mosaic reflex rises with its beautiful logic, surely an eye demands an eye. Smile like one who has changed climates. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Not as the world forgives, either on conditions, on contracts, on ledgers, but as presence, untouched. I am not asking you to count to 490. I am inviting you to stop counting altogether. In counting, there is a self who accumulates merit. In letting, there is God who is the only self. Die daily to the mathematician of virtue. Live lightly in the atmosphere where forgiveness is as unlabored as breath. And how do we enter it in the next hour? We will in a moment speak of the practice stillness as prayer. Prayer as cessation of judgment, but for now hold this. The Master did not hand you a stopwatch. He pointed to the sky and described the weather. 70 times 7 is not your workload, it is your forecast. Step outside. Here is the shocking relief. Forgiveness is prayer, and prayer, real prayer, begins the instant you stop testifying against another in your own consciousness, not 1 second earlier. As long as the inner witness box is occupied and the stenographer is taking down every offense for later appeal, you may say, I forgive 100 times, but it will be theater. Forgiveness is not you deciding to be nice. It is you withdrawing judgment, accusation, and the exquisite pleasure of being right. Judge not, that ye be not judged. Do you hear it not as a scold, but as a doorway? When judging ceases as an activity, prayer happens by itself like breath that returns when you stop holding it. What, then, is prayer? Not begging an outside God to fix an outside person so our inside may feel tidy. Not sending a holy telegram. Lord, adjust their behavior promptly. CC me on the miracle. Prayer, as I speak it, is consent. Consent to God's presence precisely where the personal self kept the case file. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. Stop the cross-examination. No, let reality announce itself that I am God, not I am the prosecutor, cleverly disguised as piety. In prayer, we do not try to make anything happen. We stop making unreality happen. We do not improve another. We relinquish the inner posture that needed an enemy. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Not clean up the world, clean the bench I've been sitting on. Feel the pivot, because it can be as quick as the turn of a head. The mind says, they did this to me. And the consciousness, trained in another climate, answers, Father, reveal what is true here, what is real in God. Not show me why I'm correct in my indictment, but show me thy presence in this very scene. That question disbands the jury. The lights change. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Let the most unspectacular verb in Scripture, and perhaps the most powerful, let the Christ mind see. Let the heat of prosecution evaporate. Let the sun you thought God had turned off be discovered pouring through the blinds you drew. Now, someone must die here, and it will not be the neighbor. It is the heroic sufferer self that must go, the identity that derives secret altitude from being wronged, the saint in distress whose crown shines brighter with every retelling of the offense. It is lovely while it lasts. Oh, what a martyr, what an autobiography, but it is a tomb if you live inside it. I die daily, said Paul. Daily what? Daily this. The personal identity that keeps its life by keeping someone else guilty. He must increase, but I must decrease, said the Baptist. Not the body must fade, not your good sense must vanish, but the judge self must give way to the self that needs no bench and no gavel to be. Do not imagine this means becoming soft-headed about events. Caesar will have his locks, and wisdom will speak its measured no. But prayer does not deputize you as God's district attorney. Prayer retires the attorney. The moment prosecution ceases in thought, forgiveness has occurred not as a mood you achieved, but as a presence you allowed. My peace I give unto you. To whom? To the empty bench? To the heart not busy keeping minutes of another's faults? You will say in a minute, but what about what happened? And I will not ask you to pretend it didn't. That is our next step, how to face facts without living in the injury. For now, hold this like a key in your palm. Forgiveness is not a favor you grant a culprit. It is the unclenching of consciousness that had financed a courtroom. The very instant prayer replaces prosecution. Father, reveal what is true here. The prisoner you have been hauling through your day is released, and you, Discoverer of the climate called peace, walk out into the air already given. Yes, now we come to the indelicate, undeniable point. It happened. The words were said, the deal was broken, the body was struck, the trust was cracked like a plate you keep turning so the fracture doesn't show in the good light. We are not here to lacquer over the scene with syrup and call that spirituality. Even the Master did not pretend the cross was a nap. He did not say it didn't happen. He said, Father, forgive them, and then it is finished. Fact acknowledged, but not enthroned. Do you think the God self of us requires falsifying the police report to discover peace? Here is our paradox. We can face the human scene in full daylight and yet refuse it the authority to name God, the soul, or our brother. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Above does not mean elsewhere, it means from the altitude of truth, not from the basement of reaction. The event belongs to Caesar's calendar. Identity does not. The mind and the body are instruments useful, wonderful instruments, but they are tombs if you move into them as a house. A dent in the fender is not a reason to pitch a tent in the trunk. A wound appearing in the instrument is not the address of the one who plays it. Use the instrument wisely. Yes, bandage it, rest it, take it to the proper shop, but do not rent an apartment in the bruise. Discernment belongs to wisdom. Condemnation belongs to humanhood. Can you feel the difference? Discernment calmly reads the gauges. Pressure is low. Take action. Condemnation smashes the dashboard and writes your brother's name on the shards. Discernment files a report and sets a boundary. Condemnation sentences a soul and ties your peace to their parole. Judge not, the Master said, and in the same breath the Scriptures praise a wise heart. The wisdom is to say no more of that while the Spirit says, and still, no enemy. If you must change the lock, change it. If you must decline the invitation, decline it. But do not pack a suitcase and go live inside the injury as if pain has become your landlord. Why seek ye the living among the dead? Why search your history's graveyard for your present name? Let me be plainer. Because the self we must die to loves subtlety. The injury becomes a tomb the moment you inhabit it, to preserve the self that was harmed. We keep resurrecting yesterday to crown the judge today. We replay the line, the look, the silence. Because as long as the scene breathes, the little self has a reason to exist. I am the one to whom this was done. That is identity theft. And we file no report about that because we enjoy the drama's royalties. Remember Lot's wife. She looked back and turned to salt, mineralized, fixed, preserved. Is there a better picture of living inside a wound, preserved, crystallized, incapable of flow? So the question, practical as shoes, how do I pray in the very moment the memory flares so I do not move into the tomb to decorate it? First, stop the trial. At the first sting, before you correct, before you compose a speech in the mouth, say within, Father, reveal thy presence here. That line invites reality, not revenge. Second, be still 30 seconds if that is all you can bear. 90 if grace opens time. Be still and know that I am God. During that stillness, place awareness in the body, lightly feet on the floor, breath like a tide, and refuse both prosecution and defense. No testimony. Let the feeling rise and fall without narrating it. You are not the historian, you are the host of presence. Third, draw the line between fact and identity. Whisper, this happened in the scene. It cannot define God. It cannot define me. It cannot define my brother. Do not negotiate with that sentence. Let it stand like a pillar. Fourth, if wise action is required, take it from stillness, not from steam. Write the email you must write with no barbed wire in the fence. Make the call, change the lock, move the funds, say the no. Outwardly you may seem cold-blooded. Inwardly you will be overheated with love because you have denied yourself the luxury of an enemy. Fifth, bless not as sentiment but as insulation. Bless them that curse you. Pray for them which despitefully use you. Blessing is not a reward for their behavior. It is a refusal to fund the courtroom. Name them silently in God. Thine, not mine. Then release the scene to "It is finished." Do not keep a subscription to the replay. This is how we honor what occurred without worshiping it. We use the mind and body as instruments, not apartments. We take wise steps and refuse inner sentencing. We die daily to the identity that survives by keeping someone else guilty, and we rise hour by hour into the climate where even memory cannot rent our peace. In that air, facts are handled, identities are held in God, and the wound, visited as a workshop, is no longer a tomb. Now don't try to forgive. Stop trying. Every time you flex that muscle, the judge in you does a few push-ups and asks for a protein shake. Be still long enough to notice the judge speaking. That is the first mercy. If you must use a clock, fine, give me 90 seconds. We are not chasing a mood. We are ceasing a trial. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, not in heroic effort, in quietness. First, identify the inner courtroom. For 15 honest seconds, listen to what is actually being said in you. What is the charge scrolling across the marquee? He betrayed me. She always takes and never gives. They are dangerous. Name it without feeding it. Do not decorate it with backstory, adjectives, or prosecutorial poetry. Just, I noticed the thought. Guilty. If you add color, you are writing closing arguments. We want a transcript, not a novel. Second, turn from person to presence. Pivot the gaze. Right there, in the same breath, acknowledge the one who is not a character in your scene. A simple inward sentence. There is one life here. Or if you like the red letters, I and my Father are one, and because one is one, no second life stands outside it to threaten it. Say it as you would check the compass before walking. We are not convincing anyone. We are consenting to reality. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and hope your offender reforms. Be still and know. Third, release the demand for emotional relief. This is where most of us bargain our peace away. We wait for a warm fog to roll in and hug us, then we stamp it forgiveness. Impersonal love is simpler and sterner than that. It is the absence of condemnation. Let the warmth come if it wishes. Do not order it from room service. Whisper, Father, I relinquish the right to prosecute in thought. If the heat flares, do not call it failure. Call it the body reporting weather. You owe it neither testimony nor a hymn. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Do not legislate. Fourth, rest in silence. For 30 to 45 seconds, do nothing but refrain from testifying. If words want to pray themselves, let them be few. Thy presence, one life. Or the simplest, here, breathe like a tide. Place awareness lightly in the feet, the hands, the chest, not to manipulate sensation, but to occupy the instrument rather than live entombed in it. Wait until a neutral, clear perception appears, not approval of the offense, not a rush of affection, simply the absence of a case. That neutrality is not coldness. It is the climate where love is free to act without the smoke of self. Peace, be still. Hear it said to the mind, see, and do not add a sailor's commentary. Now, about sabotage, because the ego is a quick study with a halo. At about the 91st second, it will announce, I forgave them. Why am I still angry? To which we must reply, who is this I who took a bow? If the forgiver self is on stage, the judge self is waiting in the wings. Do you think the God self requires a certificate of magnanimity to be what it is? The personal self forgives for applause its own. Real forgiveness begins where the forgiver diminishes. He must increase, but I must decrease. If a wave of feeling returns after you have laid down the gavel, lay it down again. 70 times 7, not as arithmetic, but as atmosphere. We are not manufacturing virtue, we are discontinuing the court. Do this practice wherever the heat catches you, at the sink, in traffic, between sentences of a difficult email. 90 seconds to stop the trial, pivot to presence, abandon the demand to feel better, and rest until neutrality appears. Outwardly you may seem cold-blooded, you did not perform outrage. Inwardly you will be overheated with love, because consciousness is no longer rendered to an enemy. Stillness is where forgiveness occurs. Not when the violins swell, but when testimony ceases. Then action, if required, will be wise and unscented with revenge. And if no action is needed, peace will quietly do what peace always does: govern. I suspected it the moment we put the clock away. One or two of us already floated out of the kitchen on a helium cloud of I did it, I forgave, only to be punctured by a text message 3 blocks later. Up you went with spiritual elation, down you came with spiritual dejection, and on the way you shook your fist at heaven as if someone had switched the labels on the Jaws piece where resentment used to be, and suddenly the shelves were backwards. Do you think God is playing musical chairs with your feelings because you weren't magnanimous enough in the 3rd stanza? Or is it possible the one who took the bow for forgiving is the very one who keeps the resentment alive for an encore? Let's tell the truth pleasantly, if we can. The personal self loves a halo. It wants a press release. Local saint pardons offender. Heaven distressed. It didn't get there first. Then it waits for the parade confetti of serenity, a marching band of compliments, and perhaps a cookie labeled, "My peace I give unto you," as a reward for good behavior. When the cookie does not arrive on schedule, the same personal self sues for breach of promise and calls it disappointment with God. Do you think the God self is a vending machine paid with acts of mercy? Take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them. Men includes the fellow in the mirror. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Forgiveness done for applause, even inner applause, is human theater. It is beautiful, moving, occasionally profitable, and it burns down at intermission. Now, please do not scold yourself for the seesaw. That rise and fall is diagnostic, not damning. The surfacing of anger after your holy afternoon is not proof you failed. It is proof you found the room where the judge still lives and he keeps late office hours. Thank him for revealing his address, then serve your own eviction notice. How? The same way we practiced, only plainer. Stop the trial again. Whisper, Father, reveal thy presence here again. But add this humility that starves the forgiver's pride. When ye shall have done all those things which are commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants. Not self-loathing, let's grow up beyond that, but the clean confession that in God's climate there is no extra credit for breathing. There is a stage, and we come to it by grace, where the personal forgiver must be extinguished, not improved. Do you hear how gentle that can be? Not murdered, extinguished like a candle at dawn because the sun has taken over the sky. This is the final black night the mystics whisper about, not as melodrama but as mercy, the holy eye that narrates. I forgave grows dim, and what remains is the light that never advertised itself. He must increase, but I must decrease. Not my kindness must die, my claim upon it must go. Until then, the ego will keep chartering the seesaw up in elation. Look how free I feel. Down in dejection when the old heat returns, I must be failing. We are not failing. We are shedding. So when the relapse visits at 2:17 a.m., do not hold a revival meeting for shame. Don't even dignify the judge with a debate. Bow and bow out. Return to the bench and find it empty. Be still and know that I am God. No fanfare, no diary entry. If the mind begins to draft another forgiveness certificate suitable for framing, tear it up before the ink dries. Let it be anonymous. Let the left hand forget. Each quiet relinquishment weakens the forgiver costume and strengthens the simple fact of presence. You will notice something odd and wonderful as this goes on. The warmth you were bargaining for arrives without announcing who brought it. Peace comes unaddressed, like sunlight through blinds you forgot you opened. Outwardly you may appear cold-blooded, you stop narrating your nobility. Inwardly you will be overheated with love, because there is no personality left to invoice the universe for services rendered. This is the beginning of freedom from spiritual vanity, and it makes room for the next strangeness we must welcome. Love that is impersonal, warm as a hearth, and cool as a clear mind, the relief of not needing anyone to be different in order to be whole. Impersonal love. Now there's a phrase that sounds about as cuddly as a steel sink until you lean against it and find it steady and warm. It is not sentiment. It is not pity. It is not the delicate commerce of I'll feel what you feel if you'll feel what I feel, as if salvation were a swap meet of emotions. Impersonal love is insulation, not indifference. Insulation. So the heat in you stays holy, and the chill in the room does not turn your teeth to castanets. It is the climate of the God self where no emotional interchange is needed to keep love lit. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good. The sun requires no verbal apology from the fields before it shines. It is impersonal and, because of that, universal. Pity, lovely as it looks, trimmed with lace, keeps a man less by fixing him at the angle of your benevolence. You stare down from the balcony of your goodness, and in that gaze he must remain small so you can remain large. Hatred, more honest because it at least admits the separation, keeps him other exiled to a corner of your sky where no light is allowed. Impersonal love releases both sentences. It neither diminishes him by charity nor banishes him by blame. It beholds the Christ where humanhood has cast a villain, and because it beholds the Christ, it refuses to finance the role either with your tears or your fists. Judge not because there is nothing to discern, but because condemnation is the glue of humanhood's story. Take away the glue, and the mask falls without your help. Do not confuse this with softness of head. In impersonal love, your no becomes simpler and stronger because it carries no freight. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. No embroidery, no theater. Outwardly, you may seem cold-blooded. You do not join the family chorus of outrage. You do not perform sympathy on cue. Yet inwardly, you are overheated with tenderness because you are seeing from God, not at people. The heart in this climate does not yearn with pity. It burns with joy for the Christ that is not offended and not afraid. The body and the money and the calendar play their parts. You use them lightly as instruments. But the love that plays them does not need anyone to be different before it can start the music. Let me make it plain on the ground, since I know some of you carry your theology like a spare tire and prefer to see it roll. There was a man I sat with in a cinder block room for months, a man whose fists had graduated long before his conscience did. He cursed me on Tuesdays and requested prayer on Thursdays, and you could smell the tang of old rage like iron in the air. The first week, I tried pity. It fogged the room and left him right where he was. Only now I was tired. The second week, I traded pity for polite hatred, a clean, private verdict dressed as boundaries. And that, too, fed him, because enemies are good protein for men who live on war. So I did what we have been practicing. Before the door opened, I stopped the trial. Father, reveal thy presence here. Then I sat without lending him my weather. When he raged, I refused the emotional handshake. When he wept, I did not climb into the well. I dropped a rope from daylight. Peace, be still, not at him within. Yea, when yea was wise, nay, when nay was needed, no barbed wire in either. What changed first? Not his mouth, my climate. The air in me cleared, the theater in me closed. Peace returned without negotiation. After 3 visits in this climate, his body found the new barometer. One afternoon he said, flat and wondrous, when you come in, the room stops arguing. Did his behavior become angelic on a schedule I could publish? No. But the warfare in my chest ended on demand. And in that quiet guidance came what to say, what not to say, when to leave the silence long enough to grow roots. And slowly, because sunlight works that way, the man began to borrow my weather more than I borrowed his. This is the strange warmth. Not needing anyone to be different is the end of your captivity to their script. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Not as a payoff for your excellent pity, nor as a medal for hating well, but as the natural climate of the self that holds no one in condemnation. Impersonal love is freedom because it cancels the transaction. No invoices, no enemies, just the unbargained for sun shining. And whoever stands near you, friend, stranger, offender, finds himself in a different light, whether he names it or not. Let me give you another proof in living. Not the tidy kind fit for a testimonial breakfast, but the kind with splinters. Years ago, a partner, let me call him my favorite accountant of humanhood, walked off with what did not belong to him. Not just cash, but friendships leveraged, trust pawned, a company limping like a man with one shoe. I tried forgiveness as theater, composed a noble email, parsed it with a thesaurus, sent it with a prayer hands emoji saintliness in Arial 12-point. Then I tried forgiveness as discipline. Wrote, I release him 50 times like a penance. Then as strategy. If I forgive, perhaps the universe will do collections for me. Each rehearsal left the same taste in the mouth, iron and smoke. Do you think it was the God self of me withholding peace until I hit precisely the right tone of magnanimity? Or was I still financing the little courtroom and merely changing the judge's robe? The turn came the way change often does, so quietly you think nothing has happened until you stand up and your knees don't hurt. I woke before dawn with the case file already open on the nightstand of consciousness. I began my usual motions, exhibits A through Q, when a cleaner line rose, one we have been practicing until it can find us in the dark. Father, reveal thy presence here. Not fix him, not return that which was taken, reveal. And then be still and know that I am God. I did the most unheroic thing I have ever done in business. I closed the inner prosecution. No arguments for, no arguments against. I sat as if the bench were empty and I were no longer employed there. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord, not as a threat to him, but as release to me. I am not the universe's bookkeeper. Within that stillness, the theater lights dimmed. A neutrality appeared, not approving the offense, not approving me for not approving the offense, simply the absence of a defendant. And in that very absence, instruction began. Do you hear the order of it? When condemnation ends, guidance begins. My sheep hear my voice. I knew not thought, knew to call one lawyer and not another, to request the quiet settlement and decline the show trial, to ask for restitution where it was alive, and to stop funding the parts of the fight designed only to keep me angry. Outwardly, I may have looked cold-blooded. I did not swing from the chandelier of outrage. I signed papers. Inwardly, I was overheated with love because the sun had found its window again. Money returned, not dollar for dollar at first, but as instruments returned to the hands of a musician who had stopped trying to play scales with clenched fists. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Not I shall not litigate, I shall not want. Now your story will write itself with its own nouns and verbs. Sometimes the outward fruit is reconciliation. A year after a slander in a congregation, the man who sharpened his words on me found himself sitting in my kitchen at 6:30 a.m. over coffee, not because I chased him with virtue, but because peace had already canceled the warrant. We spoke plainly, and a brother reappeared where a caricature had been. Sometimes the fruit is clean separation without frost. A relative who specialized in injury by holiday text now receives a birthday card and no further contract, and the heart is not colder for it. In both scenes, one thing was constant. Inward bondage broke the moment the court closed. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. Yea when yea was wise, nay when nay was needed, no barbed wire in either. The surprising harvest is energy. Do you notice how much fuel hatred burns for heat that never warms you? When the prosecution shuts, you discover spare power you thought old age had stolen. Service becomes possible again because you are no longer employed as a warden. The phone rings and you do not avoid it. The difficult email writes itself in 10 sentences without poison. A neighbor's need finds you with rope and daylight to spare. The same hands that trembled with accounting now heal, cook, carry, bless. This is practical mysticism, not scented fog. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Confidence in what? Not in your gift for letting scoundrels off the hook, but in the one life present as all, needing no enemy to be. And because we are creatures of habit, we will forget by Thursday and rehire the judge by Friday lunch. So let us live in a way that remembers for us. Carry the red letters where you can reach them on paper in the pocket or etched in the first 10 minutes of the morning and die daily to the bench. A small, repeated consent. Father, reveal thy presence here. Again and again and again. We will take that up next, not as homework to please a deity, but as oxygen for a life no longer lived inside a tomb, outside the body and the money and the story, using them as instruments under God, free to love without invoices and to act without smoke. All right, let's make this so simple you can carry it between the stove and the sink. Keep the red letters near you, not as talismans, not as incantations, but as a compass you can glance at without staging a ceremony. Judge not. Forgive 70 times 7. Peace be still. I and my Father are one. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. Slip a pocket New Testament into your coat or etch 2 lines into the first minutes of morning. Look at them the way a sailor looks at the North Star. No bargaining, just orientation. And then, and I hope you will forgive me for this, let's twist that Bible upside down and rephrase it until it is your breath. Hold no man in condemnation becomes, I refuse to keep anyone in my mental jail. Pray for them which despitefully use you becomes, Father, reveal thy presence here, thine, not mine. 70 times 7 becomes, as often as the judge wakes, I lay him back down. Set a daily, die daily check-in. Evening is kind. It has the honesty of used light. 3 minutes. No violins. Ask, where did I condemn today? Politics? The driver in the left lane? A face at the breakfast table? The one in my mirror? Do not mount the pulpit against yourself. We are not writing a novel of guilt. Recognition and release only. Name the scene, close the court. Whisper, Father, reveal thy presence here, and let the case file evaporate in that light. If anything clings, place the person or issue on the altar in one sentence, Thine, not mine. Then end the session as the Master ended the cross. It is finished. Not the outer story, perhaps, but the inner trial. Morning, give me a quiet 5. Sit before the day gets a head start on you. No eloquence needed. I and my Father are one. Be still and know that I am God. Let those phrases blow the dust off the instrument. Then rest. We are not praying to make the world behave. We are consenting to the climate in which it can be met without an enemy. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Do not legislate, outwardly cold-blooded, inwardly overheated with love. That is the posture you carry out the door with your keys. In the day itself, practice the in-the-moment reset. You know the 90 seconds. The headline flashes. The old family tone reappears. The email stings. Stop the trial. Pivot to presence. Abandon the demand to feel better. Rest until neutrality appears. Then speak yea, yea, nay, nay, without barbed wire. And if the judge pops up at lunch like he had espresso for breakfast, well, die daily means die at 11:03 and again at 2:17. Do you think the God self complains? It simply remains. We are the ones returning, and returning is the only genius required. Make it human. Tape a line on the bathroom mirror. No mental jails today. Put a note in your wallet. One life here. When the news performs its outrage opera, refuse the chorus. Judge not becomes the quiet turning of a dial, volume down, presence up. When your own mistakes parade with drums, give them the same mercy. I refuse to keep myself in my mental jail. Repent if action is due. Repair if you can, but don't employ a lifelong warden for a short-term lesson. Let me say the shocking truth once more so the heart can memorize it. Forgiveness is prayer. The instant prosecution ceases and consciousness stands naked to God. It is not willpower. It is not magnanimity. It is the end of an argument that never had a divine witness. Do this daily and you will discover the paradox that closes every true practice. The world may not change first, but you will, and what you see will not be what you used to fight. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Enter that stillness now, not to earn anything, but to lay down everything that isn't God and let the day proceed from there. So here we are at the door that has been standing open while we searched our pockets for a key. Forgiveness, we have discovered, is not the personal self straining to be holy. It is prayer, the inner cessation of judgment. And in that stillness, the God self of us is recognized as the only witness to the scene. Willpower tries to forgive a person. Prayer yields to God and discovers there was never a separate enemy to sustain hatred. The kingdom of God is within you. So if peace was missing, where was it withheld? Not in heaven. In our private courtroom, with the lights we kept paying for. Let me ask the last question and make it the seal on the whole evening. Do you really want to be right, or do you want to be free? Do you want the human satisfaction of a verdict, or the divine climate of no defendant? Do you think God is holding your peace in escrow until you file the correct emotional paperwork? Or is it possible that the moment you lay down testimony against another, what was always true becomes visible and operative? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Pure does not mean naive. It means unmixed, no condemnation stirred into the seeing. Let's do the simplest proof there is, here and now, and we won't dramatize it. 10 or 20 seconds. Stop the trial. Cease the inner speech against anyone, politician, neighbor, relative, the self in the mirror. Do not approve. Do not disapprove. Simply withdraw the witness. Be still and know. There. Nothing exploded. The headlines did not change. And yet, if you were honest, the room inside you altered. The furniture of grievance moved out without your help. This is the paradox we must carry like bread for the road. The world does not change. First consciousness does, and then you see differently. And seeing differently is not cosmetic. It is causative in the only realm that governs your life, awareness. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, not as reward, as nature. From this day, take whatever human steps are wise, call the lawyer or don't, set the boundary or don't, say yea or say nay, but do not hold anyone in condemnation. That is the single place where peace is withheld, and by whom? By you. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. Firmness without poison is the fruit of prayer. Action without smoke is the ethics of the God self. We are not opting out of the world. We are stepping out of the tomb of our narrative about it, using body and money and calendar as instruments, not as identities, and refusing the oldest hobby of humanhood, keeping someone else guilty so the personal self can keep breathing. So let this be the final laying down. Lay down the gavel. You are not the universe's bookkeeper. Lay down the story that says your safety requires an enemy. Lay down the beautiful, exhausting project of trying to become good and enter the already good presence that bears no arms. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is not sentimental heroism. It is the normal weather of awakened consciousness. 70 times 7, because the sun does not count its rays. I bless you, but not with syrup, with clarity. May the one life reveal itself as your only life. May you die daily to the judge and live lightly as the instrument. May your outward manner be cold-blooded where theater is demanded. And may your inward heart be overheated with love where Christ is seen in all. May your feet carry peace that requires no apology, and your words be short and clean, yea or nay without barbed wire. And when the old wind rises at 11:03 or 2:17, may you remember the door is not locked, that prayer is the doorway, and judgment is what you lay down. Go in the peace that is given, not earned. Hold no one in your mental jail, not even yourself. And in that freedom of consciousness itself, see the world as it could never be seen by a prosecutor, bathed in a light that does not ask permission to shine.